Hey guys, No Zoop for you here, and today we are somewhat re-reviewing the Duca D'Aosta. And the reason for that is, after the most recent patch, the D'Aosta got a lot of buffs. Some very significant ones, actually. So, as much as I hate having to do a review over again, we're going to do just that because these changes are too significant not to mention. They do change the ship a fair amount and make it a lot better. So with that being said, I just want to touch on reviews in general real quick. Because of this and what seems to be a growing trend, maybe it's not a trend, maybe it's just my imagination, I think for the most part, am probably going to hold off on my reviews until I am absolutely, positively certain that what I am reviewing is as close to what's going to come out as possible. I mean, small changes I can understand, little changes, that's fine. Yeah, I'll put out a review if you know, the changes are going to be minor. But for something this big, it just did a lot to the ship, and it doesn't help you all, and it doesn't help myself if I put out something and it changes significantly. Especially if I don't go through and let you all know down the road what the changes were. Because heaven forbid one of you all watch my previous review, you see the ship, you don't like it, and going off of what I say, you don't look at the ship. And let's just say for some reason you missed the follow-up review, you might be missing out on a fairly decent ship, and I wouldn't want you to do that. So anyhow, back to the topic at hand, the Duca D'Aosta and its upgrades. So what changed for her? I mean, she was a pretty decent ship to begin with. I enjoyed her. She was fun because of her agility and her speed. Yes, she had some pretty significant cons, but she had some pretty significant pros. In my opinion, she was fairly balanced. Well, the changes, first and foremost, her turret traverse is increased from 6 degrees per second to 7 degrees per second, so it is quicker. You've got quicker turret traverse, and I'm kind of happy about that because even now, even with these upgrades, you're going to have trouble having your turrets keep up with the turn of the ship, especially if you're aiming at something. But this helps a little bit more. Now for the big one, her torpedo range. Her torps were increased from 4.5 kilometers to 12 kilometers. Emphasis, 12 kilometers. That is insane. Her torps in her tier at tier 6 are insane. Now, her torpedo speed was reduced from 65 knots to 51 knots. That would have been pretty crazy if they kept them at 65 knots. So, yes, you get 51 knots there. That's kind of slow. I mean, they're almost like Sims torpedoes. But, you know, I can live with that, especially with the speed boost, the captain's skill. You're looking at 9-kilometer range torpedoes that fly out at 56 knots. That's not too shabby. And on top of that, visibility was reduced from 1.4 kilometers to 1 kilometers. There is very little reaction time for enemy ships to do anything about your torpedoes if you have a well-placed torpedo strike. Really, they only have about 6 seconds to react, so as long as you fire and your torps fly true, you stand a good chance of hitting your enemy. And at tier 6, we know tier 6 battleships and tier 5, which you might face, are not the fastest ships in the world. Those battleships are not that fast. So, this is going to be a good ship for hunting all varieties of ships. I mean, it's a very enjoyable destroyer hunter just on account of its speed and its accuracy. It's fun taking on other cruisers, and it's also fun going after battleships now with your torpedoes. And again, I just want to remind you that the arc on the Aosta is very good. The torpedo arc is phenomenal. You can fire almost directly in front of you, so that's just another very cool feature about this ship. So let's run over the pros and the cons very quickly. So pros, you've got excellent muzzle velocity and ballistics on her AP shells, so the shells fly good. You're going to have issues when you fire at higher tier ships. I was taking on a Kutuzov and I was doing little to no damage, even with the slightest angle on her. I still think the guns are kind of wonky, but they've got better ballistics now. And I said your torps have been increased, so you've got 12-kilometer torps. That's awesome. Again, you have the phenomenal high speed you had before at 36.5 knots. That's with a turning radius of 710 meters and a short rudder shift of 6.7 seconds, which again, that was buffed. She's one of the most agile ships in her tier, especially for a cruiser. Another neat thing about her is she gets defensive fire and hydroacoustic search, which can be used at the same time, and that is fairly rare. Again, her cons are the same as before. She's just got a very long citadel that sits above the waterline. She takes a lot of damage if you're not careful, especially if you're up-tiered. Fire chance isn't good either at 7%. She is not a fire starter, so don't play her like that. I mean, you can set fires, but it's not the way you need to play her. And again, her main battery damage per minute is just very atrocious for both AP and HE. Well, it might not be atrocious. It's just not that good. And again, her torpedoes, it's worth mentioning, they are slow. 51 knots is not fast by any stretch of imagination. I mean, you're almost as fast as your torps if you've got flags and everything else on. So just keep that in mind. I recommend the captain skill speed boost. I would definitely use that. And again, her anti-aircraft damage pretty much sucks. But again, this ship is almost a completely new ship. And with that being said, you're probably looking for my overall thoughts on her. So my recommendation for you all is, I'm not going to say this is a must-buy, because I don't think I should say anything is a must-buy. I don't want anyone to be forced to buy a ship. You're not going to lose out if you don't buy this ship. It's not like this is going to affect you in a major way if this is not part of your ship library. But if it were me, I would probably buy this ship. It is a very enjoyable ship. It's a lot of fun. It's got phenomenal torpedoes, as I've mentioned over and over in this review. So if you're looking for a very fast, very nimble, very agile ship with very good torps that in its tier will do very good, Duca D'Aosta is probably the ship for you. It is a very, very good ship. So yes, for me, I think this is a good purchase. If you enjoy cruisers and you enjoy speed and Ferraris and that type of thing. It's very, very close to Badione. They're very similar in ways. It is very Badione-esque. So if you like the Badione, you're probably going to like the D'Aosta, because they play fairly similar. Though the Duca D'Aosta, I almost called it the Duca, and some people pointed out you're just calling it a Duke, and there's more ships in the class, and I get that, so yeah, I remember that, guys. I remember what you said. The D'Aosta, again, the guns aren't the greatest. That's its real only downfall. But aside from that, I can't think of any major cons. And I mean, she is a little squishy. She does take damage, but she is a hell of a lot of fun. An absolute blast to play. So, you know, this 2.0 review, I didn't thoroughly recommend her before. I didn't say that she was a must-have, but now I'm going to say I thoroughly recommend her. With these changes to the torpedoes and everything else, I would definitely seriously look at adding the D'Aosta to your library. It is just a very fun and engaging, to use the term, ship. So anyhow, guys, that's the Duca D'Aosta review version 2.0. Again, it is a work in progress still, as it has not been released. There's still time for changes, but I think it's pretty safe to say at this point, this is probably what we are going to get. So you're going to get a great ship here, and it's Italian. The only other downside I can think of is you're starting from scratch in your captain skills, and not having one to throw in there is going to hurt you a little bit. But once you build that up, you've got a captain that you can throw into other Italian ships as they come down the line. So anyhow, guys, thanks for watching. I will catch you all later. I am out.